Welcome to Running Kanban. In this video, we'll be demonstrating the Kanban method for developing software. We'll address such problems as surprise requirements, how Kanban helps work around developer absences, and how to handle tasks that get put on hold. Let's get started. In our last video, Preparing to Kanban, we described our project, set up our Kanban board, and introduced our team. Let's review what we're working on and who's doing the work. The project is to make a class registration system for a college, usable on a mobile device, that will help students graduate on time by suggesting appropriate classes to take. We narrowed down the wish list to the features that make up the minimum viable product, and figured out the order the features should be developed. This work will be done by our development team, which consists of Enrico Gonzalez, our project manager and team leader. He can handle analysis, coding, and testing. Sarah Walters, our expert with the banner system, which handles the university records. Yoshi Wu, our expert coder. While coding is her thing, she can also do analysis and testing. And Michael Green, our intern and novice coder. When we left Preparing to Kanban, our Kanban board looked like this. We've changed the colors of the cards so we can keep track of which programming tasks go with the same feature. Here's the cards containing the rest of the MVP features that have not made it onto the Kanban board yet. Once the cards currently in the backlog move to analysis, these will be moved to the backlog. Let's get started. Yoshi, who's doing the analysis, takes the first two cards from the backlog. The other cards move up, and Enrico adds one from the waiting cards to the backlog. Yoshi looks at the first card. Searching for classes is something the current system already does. Let's just find the existing code and check it over. No need to reinvent the for loop. The second card, Building the website, is good as it is. Enrico starts on finding the previous search code, while Michael starts on building the website. Yoshi pulls the next two cards from the backlog into the analysis section, and adds the next two cards from the pile to the backlog. To display a class list, we need to read the classes offered for next semester, and then write code to display them on the website. The Display Applicable Major Classes feature needs some serious breakdown. First, we have to log into the banner system. Then, once we know who the student is, we'll have to find out what their major is, look up the class requirements for that major, and compare them to classes offered next semester. When we have that list, we'll need to get a list of classes the student's taken so we can see which of the classes for the major the student meets the prerequisites for. Let's look these over one more time to see if we're done with the analysis. Looks like we have two tasks that need to be refined further. Logging into Banner is something the current system already does, so rather than rewrite that, let's just find the existing code and check it. We also have to look closer at getting the required classes for the major. Sarah knows that the requirements for the major change over time, and the student is entitled to use the requirements that were in effect on the date that they declared their major. This means we need to look up the date that the student declared their major and find the appropriate requirements. That gives us quite a few programming tasks, some of which depend on others. Let's lay them out and figure out what order they need to be done in. We'll need to read the student's major and declaration date before we can look up the major's requirements. And we need the requirements before we can compare them to the classes offered this semester. We also need to know what classes the student's taken before so we can check if they have the prerequisites. Since some of these tasks need to be done by Sarah and others don't, we'll have to be careful not to get ahead of her. Finding the login code first will give her some time to get the prerequisite work done. We'll coordinate with Sarah at the morning stand-up meetings. Here's what our analysis and coding section look like after that flurry of activity. Sarah has picked up her first task, but there's 4 more tasks that will require her skills. Enrico is looking for the current code for searching classes, and Michael is working on building the website. Enrico is done with his task and moves over to testing, while Yoshi jumps into her favorite activity, coding. Sarah finishes her task and takes the next one from the large pile that require banner knowledge. The process continues for a few days, and our Kanban board looks like this. At the morning stand-up meeting, Sarah says she's having trouble getting the requirements for majors. She talked to the customer contact, and he said that the database administrator was on vacation for a couple weeks, so they won't be able to look into why we can't get the information. Reading the major requirements will have to be tracked. Enrico agrees and says that he'll drop the priority on tasks requiring the student's major requirements. They rearrange the Kanban board, so it looks like this. Enrico uses some project management tools to check the work in progress limits. He finds that there tends to be a backlog in the done column for analysis, so we need to pick up the pace in coding. We'll raise the work in progress limit by 1. Also, the testing step never comes close to seeing 5 tasks at once. It generally only has 1 or 2. This means that the limit for the testing step is set way too high. We'll bring that down to 2. If that causes a bottleneck because of the increased coding rate, we can always increase it. The project runs as smoothly as can be expected, which is to say multiple problems crop up. Let's see how the team handles them. Yoshi is handling testing, and the task, Display Offered Classes, doesn't pass testing. She changes the title to Fix Display Offered Classes and puts the card on the top of the backlog so it can be addressed next. Shortly after that, the feature that checks the prerequisites for classes selected by the student moves into analysis. The team is already working on a task to check prerequisites for the classes in the student's major, so all that needs to be done here is to reuse the code we're already writing. Enrico changes the task to applying the already existing feature to any chosen class rather than just the ones requiring the major. The database administrator is finally back from his vacation and can fix the problem with reading the major requirements. The task in tracking moves back to the In Progress column, and the task to compare the major requirements to the classes offered gets moved to the top of the backlog. Just as things were getting moving again, Yoshi calls in sick. She's picked up the flu that's going around and will be out for the whole week. Enrico checks the cards on the board to see which tasks Yoshi was working on and to see what can be done to make up for her absence. The analysis section is caught up. He's been working on the testing. Yoshi was coding the Checking the Class Prerequisites task and helping Michael out with Accepting Class Drops. Since Sarah has 2 tasks of her own, and there's nothing waiting in the Coding Done column, Enrico changes from testing to coding Yoshi's task and helping Michael when he needs it. He also makes a note of her absence so that when he later sees a work slowdown in the metrics, he knows why. Enrico invites the customer representative to a stand-up meeting. The team is getting close to the end of the MVP requirements, and Enrico would like the customer to start thinking about what the should-have features are. He shows the customer what they have so far. The customer says, "Oh no, people should be able to search for classes and see the list for next year without logging on. Also, where's the graphic that's supposed to show the students what their schedule looks like? That's very important as it keeps students from registering for classes that have a timing conflict." We've got MVP requirements that came up suddenly. Looks like we need to go back to the drawing, make that Kanban board. Because these are both MVP requirements, they're addressed before we add the should-haves to the list. Since Michael has been doing a lot of the web page stuff, he's given the task at developing a graphic for the student's schedule. At the stand-up meeting a couple days later, he mentioned that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that task. It's going to take him at least a week to get it done, and he's going to need Sarah's help. Enrico says, "A week? Then that task is way too big. It needs to be broken down," and moves the task back to analysis. He and Michael discuss what steps need to be taken so that it's broken down properly. As the MVP features are nearly finished, Enrico and the team meet the customer again. They discuss the should-have features and start a new cycle. As the funding cycle draws to a close, the team has a week left to develop and install features and wrap up the project. They've already finished the MVP features and are working on the should-haves. They meet with the stakeholders and literally lay their cards on the table. Enrico says, "We can do about 60 hours of work yet. These are the features you wanted that we could still possibly complete in the remaining time. The amount of time they take is listed on the cards. Which ones do you want us to do?" The customers make their choices, and the team finishes the project. A number of times during the project, Enrico consulted performance metrics before making an adjustment to how the team works. Kanban generates a lot of performance data, and there are several useful metrics that can be used to assist in project management. Watch Managing Kanban to get more information on those metrics.